Hello and welcome to the international headquarters of Indivisible. I am so excited to be here tonight to discuss the major threats to our democracy and world peace.
Yep.
And we have some really great materials to talk about tonight. We have really important issues to talk about, and me as a non-foreign policy expert, I'm so excited to be here with actual foreign policy experts to actually talk about these issues. I'm Ezra Levin, I'm co-executive director of Indivisible, and I have with me...
Hi, I'm Elizabeth Beavers. I'm the Foreign Policy Manager here at Indivisible.
And I'm Raha Wala. I'm National Security Advocacy Director at Human Rights First, which is a nonpartisan, non-political, non-profit international human rights organization.
So we're bringing out the real experts here. So I'm going to play as little of a role as possible during this whole thing because we want to hear from the experts and hear your questions too. This is a live event. If you're watching this right now, assuming it is indeed Thursday night, you are watching it live and you should be asking us questions. So to do that, you can just put questions into the comments of the Facebook of the Facebook site, and we will then drag those onto this computer screen right here, and we'll be able to answer them throughout the rest of the evening. So please just put them in the comments, and we'll be able to get to them. But before we get to the actual content, I want to celebrate our brand new Indivisible group, the newest Indivisible group, registered at, I'm told, 1:24 p.m. today, April 5th. It's Indivisible Titusville in Florida. So you get a blue dot to join all of the other 6,000-ish blue dots here on the map. And they drew me a helpful map to show me exactly where in Florida you are, which is roughly right here. Welcome, Indivisible Titusville. It's great to have you as part of the movement, and we're excited to fight the Trump administration's agenda over the coming months and years with you. And you're joining tons of other Indivisible groups in Florida who are doing the same thing, so you're in good company. Okay, so we're going to get to the content. The one last announcement I want to make is there is an immediate action you can do right now, and that is to click the share button on the Facebook Live video right now. This will share it to your friends and family who are also on Facebook, and that's going to help us get this message out. We need to reach as many people as possible because the advocacy we're engaging in right now to protect American democracy depends on numbers. It depends on people getting engaged, and you can, in this very moment, click that button, click share. So we're going to take 2 seconds. I'm not going to say anything. We're going to let you click share. Okay, you click share. Now let's actually get to the content. Elizabeth, you want to kick us off?
Sure. So we have a lot to cover. The Trump threat level remains high, as always. If you all haven't visited trumpthreatlevel.indivisible.org, that is where we keep the running list of all the ways that Trump is hindering our national security week after week and what you can do about it. So I want to make sure to answer some of the questions we've been getting and let you all know about an extremely winnable fight that's coming up very soon in the next few weeks. So first, I do want to address the Mueller investigation and the threats to our democracy. We get so much feedback about this. You all are doing an incredible job communicating with your members of Congress, letting them know how you feel about this. We just saw this week a story that Mueller considers Trump to be the subject of a criminal investigation and is writing a report on his findings. So obviously, as he gets closer to the truth, he is more at risk. His investigation is at risk, and that's something that all of you know very well and you're doing incredible work on. So I do want to make sure to mention that, and if you haven't signed up at trumpisnotAboveTheLaw.org, then make sure to do that and be ready for a crisis response plan. We take very seriously our commitment to you to advise when we think you can have the most impact and what's coming up in Congress and where you have leverage to really derail the Trump agenda. And that's a really important thing to keep in mind, which is that so much of this is political. Holding Trump accountable requires that his political power, that we poke holes in it and we take that away. And so how we do that is we focus on derailing the Trump agenda. If and when there is key leverage, we will let you know. If and when Trump crosses a red line and inhibits the investigation, we will not only be out in the streets, but we have a very robust advocacy plan that's ready for that moment. So thanks to all of you for the incredible work you're doing, and we look forward to answering more questions on that and talking about that. So one way of derailing the Trump agenda, something that's incredibly key, is taking away his cabinet of his war cabinet that he's assembling. It's no secret that Trump has been engaging in some house cleaning in the last few weeks, to say the least, and clearing out a number of his advisors and cabinet officials. We are so concerned about who he is choosing to replace those officials with. And most recently, he has nominated Mike Pompeo to serve as Secretary of State. You might remember Pompeo from last year because he has been serving as Trump's CIA director. We opposed him then. Many of you were incredibly forceful at town halls all across the country in showing your displeasure to the senators who did confirm him. Now they have another chance. He has been nominated as Secretary of State, and the Senate does have to confirm him again. The other thing is, as he slides over from CIA to the State Department, there is a vacancy. And Trump has chosen to fill that vacancy with someone named Gina Haspel. And I'm really glad to have Raha here to tell us more about Gina Haspel. We have a number of concerns about both these nominees. If the name Gina Haspel is not familiar to you now, it absolutely will be by the end of this Facebook Live, and I think you'll be as angry and concerned as we are and ready to take action. Just quickly to remind us of all the reasons we opposed Mike Pompeo in the first place and are going to do it again. Mike Pompeo surrounds himself with total Islamophobes. He exhibits anti-Muslim hate and behaviors and language. He denies climate change. He has supported torture in the past. He is very likely to take us closer to war with North Korea and Iran. Trump described Mike Pompeo as sharing a similar thought process and having the same mind as he does. That by itself should tell us why we need to oppose Mike Pompeo. But there are a number of other reasons, a number of other things that make him really dangerous. And I do want to hone in on that one, which is he has voiced support for torture before. And that's something that he shares with the woman who is set to replace him, Gina Haspel. Now, Gina Haspel is someone who went above and beyond. It's not just that she made statements thinking torture is okay. It's not even just that she was one of the many people who played a role in essentially writing legal permission slips for the CIA to engage in torture. She didn't just write a memo or get involved in law or policy. She operationalized the torture program. She personally led what they called a black site, one of the CIA's secret prisons around the world that kidnapped, secretly detained, and tortured people. That is obviously inhumane, cruel, illegal, immoral, everything you can think of. It is totally disqualifying for someone to get any promotion, nonetheless promoted to the top of the agency that did it in the first place and would do it again if it happened again. Now, we know Trump has said he thinks torture works. He said he wants to bring back worse than waterboarding. He's made all kinds of terrible threats. I think we would imagine if he really wanted to carry those out, this is exactly who he would appoint to carry that out for him. So, Raha, I want to turn to you. You are a super expert on these things, and I want to make sure that everyone benefits from your perspective. Can you tell us a little bit more about what do we actually know about Gina Haspel, and maybe even more importantly than that, what do we not know about Gina Haspel?
Sure. Well, before we get to Gina Haspel, let me just say one word on Pompeo. I've been following him for a very long time, since back in his days in the House, when he's been a real thorn in our side, opposing the closure of Guantanamo. You mentioned his comments on torture. It's hard to imagine a more Islamophobic choice for Secretary of State. So, I couldn't be more concerned about him as a Secretary of State nominee. To your point about Gina Haspel, this is a woman who reportedly ran a CIA black site. That means she was on site in Thailand at a clandestine secret prison where detainees were being tortured. It is reported that she had direct involvement with the torture of at least one detainee, a detainee named al-Nashiri, including with the waterboarding of this detainee. Sometimes these terms are, antiseptic, or there's euphemisms out there where people talk about enhanced interrogation. This is the worst form of torture. Strapping someone to a board, forcing water into their lungs to the point in which you're replicating a drowning sensation, holding someone for hours on end in suspended stress positions, keeping them awake with sleep deprivation for 180 hours on end. It's hard to imagine the level of cruelty here, and she was directly involved. So this is point number one. Point number two about Gina Haspel, she was involved in the destruction of the videotapes of the very torture she was involved in. So, that's not only a conflict of interest, but it's a direct violation of federal law. It's illegal to destroy evidence, plain and simple. And so here we have a woman who reportedly, again, was lobbying for and drafted the cable to destroy the videotapes of torture in an industrial-grade shredder. This sounds like stuff out of a bad spy movie,
oh my gosh.
But it's true. We don't know pretty much anything else about her. She was undercover until last year, and now that her nomination is pending, we are only starting to learn the facts. And I think a big point here will be not only will senators take a stand against her and announce a no vote based on the record that she does have that's public, but will they also demand a full declassification of her record? Because that's incredibly important for our democratic process to ensure that there is transparency and accountability for the use of torture.
Yeah. It's incredibly concerning. I don't know about you, but I've been really concerned by a lot of the reactions seem to be, well, she was following orders, or she was just doing what she was told. From what I understand, and fill us in more on this, that it went so far beyond that it seems like not only was she not just following orders, which, first of all, that doesn't matter. That's not an excuse. But she went above and beyond what she was told to do and, in fact, defied orders to carry out these things. Is that right?
That's right. And let's just stipulate for a minute that she was following orders. We have never accepted this defense since World War II, where we prosecuted Japanese soldiers for waterboarding. Those were the arguments that were being made. Well, there was legal authorization. Some lawyer within the bureaucracy wrote a legal memo justifying these acts of torture. Well, it's just following orders of my superior. No, the military never accepts this. We have not accepted this ever in our history. There's no reason for us to accept it now. But as you pointed out, Elizabeth, there's all kinds of evidence that the torture program went well beyond anything that was authorized by the Department of Justice or even the CIA. So the question then is, what involvement did she have in all of these acts of brutality that have gone so far beyond what was authorized? One former CIA official, the top lawyer, John Rizzo, described her as having run the entire interrogation program for some period of time. Well, what period of time was that?
Right.
What detainees were tortured under her watch? I mean, I think those are the important questions that need to come out. But I think it's important to say, as of right now, even if you grant her that she was only following orders, even if you grant her that she was waterboarding or involved in waterboarding with the legal authorizations that happened at the time, it's still sufficient to say it's unacceptable for the message that it would send to nominate this woman to head up the CIA.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, you do a lot of really good work with many retired military leaders who weigh in on these things pretty frequently. Can you tell us more what you're hearing from them about what it does to our security? What does it mean for us as a nation and our national security to not only embrace torture with impunity, but to elevate someone and make that the face of one of our most powerful government agencies? What do military leaders tell us about that?
Yeah, it's a really important point, right? Sometimes there's this confusion out there. Well, we have to pick either between our national security or our foundational American values or human rights. Well, no, it's actually a false choice, right? If you talk to military leaders, like I have, even today I was on the phone with a number of retired generals and admirals who are extremely concerned about this nomination. What they will say is, when we torture individuals, when we treat them inhumanely in our custody, that just leads to a propaganda boon for terrorists and our enemies out there. It degrades our own troops' morale, and it makes it more likely that our troops will be tortured in the future if they are captured. Not to mention, the latest science, and any professional interrogator you talk to will say that torture is actually ineffective. What it will do is essentially get someone just to talk and say whatever they think you want to hear to make the pain and the suffering stop. So this torture, not only did it not help our national security, not only did it fail to produce actionable intelligence to stop terrorist attacks, it harmed our national security. And so what message would that send to have someone who caused untold harm to our national security leading up the CIA? I think that's a really important question for senators to explore during the confirmation hearing, and I think we know the answer.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, let's put a finer point on that. If the Senate were to confirm Gina Haspel, it would be the first time that they have confirmed someone who had an operational role in the torture program, right? And so what does that say internationally? I know what happened to our national security before when this happened, but just having her lead this agency, especially under this president, what are the reverberations for security? What message does that send? And what really are senators voting on when they face this choice?
Well, I think it's really important to explore her record in depth, and as you said, she is the only nominee in recent history, as far as I know ever, who's ever had an operational role in torture. At Human Rights First, in our nearly 40 years, I can count on one hand the number of nominees that we've opposed, and that's how serious this is, to have a nominee under a commander-in-chief, the president, who openly advocates for the use of torture, with an incoming Secretary of State, or at least a nominee, who advocates torture, a Attorney General who has advocated torture in the past, and now a National Security Advisor, pending National Security Advisor, who has advocated for incredibly aggressive approaches in the national security context. I think the risk of a return not only to torture, but to any number of untold violations of the rule of law is at an apex right now. So we have to be really, really vigilant. We do have a full backgrounder on Gina Haspel, and we'll post that in the comments for those who are watching to get a full download on her record. But what it would say, the signal it would send to our allies and our enemies alike, is that the United States is willing to not only accept and tolerate torture, but to promote it. And what does that mean for a country that is historically supposed to be a global leader on human rights? I think we're taking many, many steps back here, and it's really important to stop it in its tracks.
Yeah, absolutely. And one point you mentioned, something that we're really concerned about here at Indivisible, Haspel by herself, this is a super problematic nomination. It's something we should all oppose and we should use our power to defeat. But this is in the broader context. Not only do we have the Pompeo nomination, but we have the appointment of John Bolton to serve as National Security Advisor. And just in case folks don't remember this guy, he is just still one of the biggest cheerleaders for the Iraq War, someone who absolutely disdains international law, has no use for human rights, would love to see us bomb North Korea or Iran. This guy is dangerous. He's incredibly dangerous, and I know it's frustrating, but we don't have leverage to stop him. He is not Senate confirmable. So, I think one thing that senators are going to have to keep in mind is that they really are kind of voting on Trump's war cabinet that he's assembling. It's not just about Haspel. It's in the broader context of the people that he's surrounding himself with that probably won't do the right thing and tell him no when they need to tell him no, but instead will embrace his worst instincts. So thanks so much for that, Raha. Thank you for sharing your work with us. Ezra, I turn it back over to you.
Okay, well, so we got a ton of great information, and I'm sure now you have a ton of questions for us. So again, you can put your questions in the comment section of Facebook for either Elizabeth or Raha, and we'll get to them. And we're starting right now with Dana in Massachusetts, who asks, there are bills in the Senate that would protect Mueller. Why isn't Indivisible focusing all of its energy on that? What a great question, Dana.
What a great question. Yes. It's true. There are two bills in the Senate. They're both in the Judiciary Committee. Both of them have a slightly separate approach to kind of add a layer of judicial review to an attempt of Trump to fire Mueller and destroy the investigation. Really great pieces of legislation. They're both bipartisan, and that's great. So unfortunately, though, we don't have leverage to move these bills forward at this time. As you all know, because you've all read the Indivisible Guide, that constituent pressure works. And it works best when there's a pending vote and there's something that members of Congress have to make a choice on, or when there's a piece of leverage, something we can hold up, something we can do in exchange for moving this forward. That's not something that we have. Even if this were to make it out of committee, it is still by Mitch McConnell's good graces whether it comes to the floor, and I think we all know how those things turn out. So, again, we take our commitment to you very seriously to advise you where you can have the most impact. It unfortunately is not in moving those bills right now. But like I said, we are monitoring all of these situations very closely. We will be the first ones to tell you when there is an opportunity to further protect Mueller, and please do sign up for the crisis response plan. There will be quite a lot to do if Trump does cross one of those red lines. So, yeah, great work that everyone's doing, and we'll be sure to keep monitoring the situation.
And I just want to underline that point. I think you made it beautifully that, core to the indivisible theory of change is that, we're not a healthcare organization or immigrant rights organization or a tax organization. We are an organization dedicated to constituent power, like you said, which is trying to advise you as to when you can have the most impact, which means when your issue is up, when an issue is up, that's when we've got to fight. As a former congressional staffer, I can tell you the attention span of a typical member of Congress is roughly 3 minutes. If you go in the office talking about something that's happening, a few weeks from now or next month or God help you next year, it's going to be in one ear and out the other. Your power comes from saying, hey, I know there's a vote next week. I know there's a hearing tomorrow. I want you to behave this way, and I'm going to be watching. I'm going to be holding you accountable. And the reason why we're spending so much time right now talking about Pompeo and Haspel is, you got that leverage right now. So that's where you can actually fight the Trump administration's agenda. By all means, when Mueller, when there's a bill moving, we want you to fight on that, and we're going to be first out there. But right now, what we're saying is the best way you can combat Trump administration's agenda is on these two votes, on Pompeo and Haspel.
Great.
So, or anything to add? Okay. Martin in West Virginia, welcome Martin, says, I contacted my senator's office about this, and they said they want to get more information about Gina Haspel and give her a fair hearing before making a decision on her.
Yeah, I think we've heard this from quite a few senators, right? That, well, they're not going to come out in opposition before a hearing. They want to give her a fair hearing. That's the position of a number of senators. From our perspective, there's nothing that can come out of this confirmation hearing that would absolve her or that would justify any senator voting for her. That's great to ask the hard questions, get the good information, get what we deserve to have public to really vet and assess her. But that shouldn't change anything factually. We know that she actively participated in torture and that she destroyed the evidence. That's criminal activity, and that is automatically disqualifying. So
pretty clear cut.
So it's really important for constituents, I think, to pressure their senators. I mean, like you've said before, yesterday is the time when they need to come out publicly, and that is the ask for senators right now. Publicly come out in opposition to both Haspel and Pompeo. Do it now. Do it before the hearing. Start that momentum now and let Trump know that these nominees, they're in trouble and they might not have the votes. Do you want to say anything more on that?
Well, just to put a finer point on it, I mean, I think you might be reading in the newspapers, there are, retractions about this aspect of Gina Haspel's record or that aspect of her record. The truth of the matter is we have never faced a nominee whose entire history and record is classified. And so what the CIA is doing is they're kind of sniping from the sidelines and saying, well, you got that little tidbit wrong or this or whatever. But the central facts of her involvement in torture and her involvement in the cover-up of torture, really the destruction of evidence, are not disputed, right? And whatever might, change in terms of the, the little details on the side is not going to change that central narrative, and that is sufficient to demand, really, a vote no on Gina Haspel.
And can we talk a little bit about so often these things are really partisan. Democrats are all on one side and Republicans are all on the other. What is the current state of affairs when it comes to Haspel's nomination, and where are people publicly on this nomination?
Well, the issue of torture, this is really the amazing thing, has been so bipartisan for so long. George Washington, one of the founding fathers, opposed torture. Abraham Lincoln signed the Lieber Code that was opposed to torture. Ronald Reagan championed the United Nations Convention Against Torture. We have multiple votes in the Senate, overwhelming bipartisan, votes against torture, dating back to just a couple of years ago with, the Senators McCain and Feinstein leading an example. So this is not a partisan issue. We've already seen, at least one Republican, Senator Rand Paul, come out against Haspel. Senator McCain has raised a number of very serious concerns about her record, a number of Democrats as well. So again, this is not a partisan issue. This is an issue of American ideals, the rule of law, and what it really means to be promoting our national security. And I think that's what you're going to see if we really educate members on this vote.
So folks out there with a Democratic senator who has not yet made a public statement on this, a reasonable question they could ask is, why are you more pro-Trump and more pro-torture than somebody like Rand Paul?
You said it yourself.
Okay, well, you have a question to ask.
Is your senator more conservative than Rand Paul on torture?
If your Democratic senator has not yet come out in opposition of Haspel, the answer is yes. And that should be unacceptable. Okay, moving on. Next question. Elise in New Hampshire asks, my senator already voted to confirm Mike Pompeo last year. I don't think they'll be open to changing their vote. What should I do?
Yeah, great question. Unfortunately, we saw 14 Democrats and one independent, Mr. Angus King, vote for Mike Pompeo last year. And, immediately they faced incredible backlash from their constituents, including many of you, showing up at town halls, showing up at their offices, telling them it wasn't acceptable. They are on notice, and that they noticed. It's something that impacted them. And what I keep hearing from various offices is that many of them are taking this decision very seriously, and many of them, if you'll notice, have actually not really come out with their strong support, saying, well, I already voted for him once, I'll vote for him again, that sort of thing. And I think part of that is not only because they've experienced what their constituents think when they get this wrong, but also because this is a completely different position that they're assessing him for. This is Secretary of State. This is supposed to be the lead U.S. diplomat. This is supposed to be the face of U.S. foreign policy all over the world. What would it look like to confirm someone who will export Trumpism all over the world, who will take us closer to a new war, who will be such a threat to human rights? There are different things at stake here. There are completely different questions, and that alone should be enough of an off-ramp for senators to change their mind. So we definitely encourage you to be pushing them on those points.
One of my earliest memories of the Indivisible movement, actually, early last year, was right after the Pompeo vote. Dianne Feinstein had voted for Pompeo, and there were all these protests of Indivisible groups and others chanting, why Pompeo, outside her office.
Yep.
And I think she's one of the ones who has been more tentative about supporting him for the new position.
Exactly.
It's a new world. So just because your member voted against it last time does not mean it's a foregone conclusion.
Absolutely.
Ryan, anything to add?
Nope.
Okay. Francis, we don't know where you're from, but you have a great question for us, and that is, I'm exhausted with the daily circus in the White House. Any tips on staying on task? We all are.
Yeah.
We all are.
Got
We
any
just
tips for
felt
us?
that.
Yeah.
Do you have any tips,
yeah.
Francis? No, I think we all just felt that exhaustion along with you. Ezra might have more to say about this.
Yeah.
You know, I think we really do try to take our commitment to you very seriously to show you where you can have the most impact at any given time, because it does feel like there's so many fires to put out at any given time, and we try to assess where can we really have the impact and where can we make a difference. So at the risk of sounding very self-serving, like, follow us on Twitter, sign up for our email alerts. We are sure to tell you where you can actually do something, because I think it's more exhausting when you feel like maybe there's nothing we can do. And actually, a really great tool we just developed is you can text Indivisible to, actually Ezra should say it.
No, you're good. You text Indivisible to 97779. Yes. Not everybody's saying, yes, that's it.
Yes.
It's 97779. You text Indivisible to that. We've got actually really great content that's coming out specifically on what we're talking about today. We're going to be pushing out stuff. So you don't have to worry about reading the news alerts every single hour. We're going to send you stuff and say, hey, this is a chance to make your voice heard. One of the really challenging things about pushing back against this administration is exactly what you said. There's a circus every single day. How can you figure out what exactly you should be doing at any given time? And, what you said, Elizabeth, I think is right on. We take our responsibility here about providing strategic advice really quite seriously. We try to focus in not just on every single thing day to day, but where do you have leverage? That's why right now we're talking about Haspel and Pompeo. We believe this is where you can have impact. And then beyond that, you can also have impact by getting involved electorally, like so many Indivisible groups are. They're registering voters. They're doing, they're going out to candidate forums. They're holding them themselves. They're doing endorsements. We just launched our first round of endorsements. So there is a chance to retake Congress and actually change what is possible politically nationally. The circus is going to continue in the short term at least, but we could end it soon.
Yeah.
And by just sticking with us at least through the end of this year, we're really going to be able to change things. So just keep with us, and we're going to keep with you too. Anything to add, Ron?
I would just be remiss if I didn't plug. My comms team is probably watching. www.humanrightsfirst.org.
Yep.
We have a ton of excellent analysis, research, and next steps that you can follow on all the leading human rights issues that you care about. So check it out, www.humanrightsfirst.org.
Awesome. So we're totally running out of time, so I'm going to combine the last two questions. We have Dave and we have Elizabeth from Illinois. Dave asks, why doesn't John Bolton have to be confirmed? Great question. And then Elizabeth from Illinois asks, are there any coordinated dates for action on these nominations? So John Bolton, why is there no vote, and what about coordinated dates for action?
Yeah, I mean, the National Security Advisor position is not Senate confirmable. That's kind of all there is to it. I don't know. I don't know if you have more background on that.
It's just a White House appointed position that has historically been at the discretion of the president. So unfortunately, there is only a subset of executive branch positions that are Senate confirmable. The National Security Advisor is not one of them. This is Trump's pick, unfortunately.
So, and this is, again, tying back to why are we talking about Haspel and Pompeo so much here? It's because that's where you have leverage. John Bolton's awful. Don't get us wrong.
Yeah.
We would love to prevent John Bolton from being the National Security Advisor, but if Trump wants to appoint him, we're really limited in what we can do as advocates. But we're not limited when it comes to Pompeo and Haspel. We can beat them on that front. So that's why we're focusing so much here on that. And then the other question was coordinated actions.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, so definitely text Indivisible to 97779 because that is where you'll get the most up-to-date information at this time. So we don't have specific dates of action that are scheduled, but we will tell you that Pompeo's confirmation hearing is set to likely be next week, meaning that a floor vote could come a couple of weeks later, teeing up the Haspel proceedings to begin. So within the next few weeks, we really don't have a very long window of time. So we look forward to hearing from your groups where you're able to surge that capacity, push those phone calls, and especially do in-district office visits, telling your senators to come out publicly in opposition to both these nominees as soon as possible.
So then to summarize, a few things that you can do right now, last action items as you as advocates exercising your constituent power. 1, share the video. This is super easy. Just click the share button. Then everybody will hear about this and we'll have more people sharing the video. We'll have billions of people and these nominations are going down. So that's 1. That's very easy. 2, we're in the middle of this congressional recess right now. Members of Congress, Senate are back home. You can be calling their offices and you can be going to their district offices to talk about Pompeo and Haspel. That's right now. That's this week and it's going for the next couple of weeks. Now's the time to act. 3, you can text Indivisible to 97779. That's 3 sevens, 97779, and we'll start sending you, when there are big things happening on this front, we'll send you information. 4, you can go to either indivisible.org or
humanrightsfirst.org
and get all the information you need to take action and get the rest of your family members, your friends, your group members informed about how to take action. So those are the 4 things. Get to work. We're going to beat these nominations. We're going to do it together by standing up and making our voices heard. So thanks for being with us. Bye, y'all.